Welcome to Deservingly You. Tonight, we're going to dive into something that can completely transform your relationships, your energy, your sense of self, and that's owning your boundaries. Now, boundaries aren't about being harsh or shutting people out. It's about clarity, courage, and connection. And they allow us to define, communicate, and honor what we need without apologizing.
Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling unseen, drained, or even resented yourself for not speaking up? You're not alone in that. Okay. Boundaries are the key to changing it. Right. And tonight we're going to talk about how you can do it. So, as a reminder, please hit like, subscribe, and share this information to anybody that you may think could benefit from it. And so let's dive right in, shall we?
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So, when we're not clear about what we need, we can end up withdrawing, right? Disconnecting or carrying quiet resentment. And that resentment, it doesn't just hurt our relationships. More importantly, it can eat away at our own self worth.
And here's another thing to consider: people cannot honor needs that we never communicate. And without boundaries, relationships can get lopsided. But on the other hand, with boundaries, they can become healthier. They can be rooted in honesty and mutual respect. And here's another point that I want to bring out in regards to the relationship. That relationship may be with yourself. You can become healthier and you're more rooted in your own authenticity, as well as that self-respect, and your self-trust can grow stronger and stronger.
So here's a reflection for you. Think of a time when you pulled away instead of speaking up. Okay. What did it cost you? Not just in the moment, but how you felt about yourself afterward going forward.
I know for me personally, it's like having those types of situations. Um, I didn't feel good about myself with not being honest, because it can be scary, feeling like judged, and whether or not I'm accepted or something. So having boundaries can definitely help with those type of situations.
Most definitely, yes.
So I want to break it down a little bit more. What exactly are boundaries? Boundaries are simply this: clearly expressed expectations, preferences, and needs. And that's it. They're not walls, they're not ultimatums. And actually, it's an invitation. It's an invitation saying, this is how I want to relate with you.
I want you to notice something here. They're relational, okay? Boundaries aren't just about protecting yourself, they're about creating the conditions for a healthy connection. And they're about saying, I value this relationship enough to be honest about what I need, right?
Yeah, that's really powerful. The thought of that value, the value of the relationship tied to being so true to yourself.
Yeah. So think of boundaries like guide rails, right? They keep us safe and moving in the right direction. Without them, we're likely to derail emotionally, mentally, and even physically.
Kind of makes you think of the playing bowling, and when they've got the
Yeah,
bumper ball.
yeah. Bumper guards.
Yeah.
Without them up, you might go in the gutter.
Yep.
Relationships would really go sideways without them, huh?
Yeah, and they matter because boundaries help us to feel respected, supported, and valued. And they allow us to fully express who we are without suppressing the parts of ourselves just to make other people feel comfortable.
right? And they protect our energy, don't they? Without boundaries, we can get drained and depleted. Sometimes this happens without us even realizing how or why.
Yeah, so I want to ask everybody, of all of these benefits, which one matters to you the most right now? Is it the feeling respected? Is it protecting your energy, or is it something else? Now, for me, it's about the freedom and the clarity. Now, I'm working on preparing a communication to have with family right now. And part of that freedom is about truly feeling that I can express who I am, and without without the repercussion. And the piece about the clarity with that, that kind of comes, it might feel like a little bit of a double-edged sword, because there's a level of understanding that I may need to let go of that relationship, right, for right now. It doesn't mean forever, but for right now. But having that clarity, it can that can help give that strength and that why we want to set that boundary. um because being in the a relationship without that, although I love my family dearly, there are often times that I don't feel upbuilt and I don't feel fulfilled after conversations. And that is really, really important to me. If I can't be authentic and I can't be my true self, it's really, really challenging to have those conversations. So that's really important to me, to be able to have that. What about you, John?
Well, it reminds me early on in my um, leaving the organization, my family, or I felt the need actually to, well, they asked me why, and I felt the urge to be too detailed, like I normally, like I sometimes do. Like I had to convince them of something,
Yeah.
right? And I've come to realize it's not about that.
Mhm.
Although I've shifted away from that need quite recently, even when I'm just trying to have the most simple of conversations with them, if it happens, um, their need is still there to try to convince me, but I don't have to let it drain me so much. But I've actually stepped back, um, and let go of that relationship for right now. Like you said, even though I love them dearly, I can't carry that around with me. I don't want to have to answer all these questions either,
Mhm.
because it's draining.
Yeah, and it's draining when that wall automatically goes up, and because there's the reasoning can be challenging. Um so I get that, the draining that energy, and that's kind of what I experienced too, with like not having those conversations to be fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are many types and kinds of boundaries. You've got emotional, physical, sexual, intellectual, material, as well as time. And each of these boundaries really matters.
Something to think about. Okay, during COVID, for example, many of our boundaries they shifted, and even if you were unaware of it, things just changed, and and around your work, home, your time, and space, it just kind of blurred.
Mhm.
So it's worth asking: have you reset them since since then? Yeah.
And some of these, some of the ideas are behind this, emotional boundaries. Part of that is like what we were just talking about with our families, and having the conversation and being able to have our feelings and our emotions and be able to share them and feel safe with sharing that. we know that a lot of people too, it's like being able to have our physical and our sexual boundaries and feel, be able to have enough space. Don't stand too close to me, and things like that. The other thing with even with family is having that intellectual piece and being able to share your ideas and not be put down for them. And so being able to say what is important to you, what different ideas are important to you, without having them be attacked. One of the examples in regards to the material boundaries, an example that I heard recently was about, like, if you've got a roommate, and if the roommate is going in and just helping themselves to your clothing and wearing them out without your permission, without having that would be a violation of that boundary. And then can you any thoughts on time, John?
Well, boundaries over time, you know, within, the organization is, I think there's a lot of judgment around that. How you spend your time, whether your time in the ministry or, you're spending too much time with doing other activities, that may be of interest, hobbies and whatnot. And I think that there isn't a lot of boundaries around that as far as people in your business.
How about outside? How about now? Can
Yeah.
you, like, you and I have been out for over a year now. Can you think of any boundary that um might violate time? I could see something like, if you set an appointment with somebody and they are purposely late, they are always late.
Oh yeah.
And so that would be a violation of that type of boundary. That's what comes to mind for me in regards to time.
I've had to set boundaries of time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm wired to work, on my secular job.
Yes.
I mean, I always just that way. And if, like, my boss, if he asked me to work an extra day, um, I've learned that, hey, I need to recognize that and not just and put a boundary around that. If I need something else done that day, or if I've had other if I have other um, if I promise my time somewhere else, is what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah. And
Then I need to respect that and say no to my boss.
yeah.
So that's a
And
boundary.
that's one of the things, you've actually been really good about, checking in with me now.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about working an extra day or whatever. And in fact, just recently you were like, hey, this is what I was thinking, and I told you no. No, because we have this packing to do and get ready and stuff like that. So no, that it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, let's go on to distinctions of boundaries.
Okay. So not all boundaries here you can see are created equal, right? Some are intentional, chosen with clarity, right? And some are superimposed on us, right? Like boundaries we inherited from family, culture, or systems that we grew up in. Okay. And others are invisible, right? Unspoken and just assumed. With the graphic here, we can see the idea of what's in the roots is what we inherited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And boundaries also are subjective. So what's right for you is right for you. and they're dynamic, and so they can shift with seasons as well as with circumstances. And if we look at the graphic again, what's demonstrated here is what grows in the branches is what we choose to have as our boundaries.
Right. And so here's a question for you. Which of your boundaries might be inherited instead of chosen? And once you've defined those, you can ask yourself, do they still serve me or not?
Yeah. And this can be this is a tough one. This is one of those when John and I talk about the deep work and doing the work, this is one of those activities and one of those times that more than likely you're not going to sit down just once and have it all figured out. It's going to take time. It's going to it's part of the reason too that we're talking to you about getting in tune with your body so that you can recognize when some of these feelings come up and recognize whether or not it is right for you and whether or not you want to have that boundary in your life. And so which one is it serving me? And if it is, great. If not, then it gets tossed to the curb.
Right. It's important to have that awareness that boundaries are not written in stone.
Mm-hmm.
Some may be,
Yeah.
they're in place forever, but like we mentioned, they shift, with circumstances and different seasons of our lives.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the domains. Boundaries show up basically in two main domains. That's the external and the internal. Now, external boundaries shape how we relate with family, friends, community, spirituality, as well as technology.
Whereas internal boundaries, they shape how we relate to ourselves, right? Our self-talk, work habits, compulsions, even how we serve other people.
Mhm.
And here's the thing, the kicker. Boundaries with self are often the hardest and the most transformative as well.
Yeah. So I want you to take a moment to reflect and think about where in your life do you need stronger boundaries with yourself? So I know for me, like I've talked about like working on the family and having those conversations. So I do have some boundaries that I really need to work on and to define there. And then I also, to be brutally honest, I could really use some improvement around technology. What
Mm.
about you, Johnny?
Compulsions. I could use some boundaries around my intake of sugar.
Ah,
Um, like I use that too when emotions are running high or
mhm.
stress. I tend to reach for something that isn't so good for me, perhaps.
Yeah,
So at least being aware of that, I could make a shift, right?
yeah. I
Yeah.
I know in the past before when I was at my worst, coming out of the domestic violence as well as the beginning parts of the cancer journey, my self-talk was horrible. It's like I would call myself stupid. I would you're a loser, you're this, you're that. And so I learned different ways to have that, and I learned that to have more of a compassionate boundary in regards to my self-talk so that I was building myself up instead of putting myself down.
There's a lot to that, isn't there?
Yeah.
So let's walk through the um, the process step by step. Okay. First, identify your domains: family, friends, work, technology, and choose the boundary types that matter most: emotional, time, physical. whatever that looks like for you.
And then once you have that, that domains, is it internal, is it external, is it family, is it friends? And you've identified those types, like John said, then what you need to do is define those expectations, those preferences, as well as those needs. And sometimes this can take a little work. And so one of our favorite tools is to journal. And so, especially when it's kind of fuzzy, what we're really wanting. So journaling can help us to clarify which of those are unclear to ourselves, even, and which ones are feeling fuzzy. And once we do that, once you get it, sit with it. Because sometimes when the words are first coming out, it can take it may not be like you haven't worked all the way through it. So once you journal through those unclear ones, sit with it and really see if they are true for you. Ask yourself, does it feel true to me?
Right. And then comes communication. Okay. Not something vague, not softened, but clear. Okay. Try this phrase. For instance, this is important to me because, you know, and name that.
Yeah. And then finally, define the consequences if those boundaries are not honored. And
Mhm.
here's one of the challenges, big challenge is holding that line. And if to be able to calmly remind them and reinforce it. So
Yeah.
that's the process overall to help you kind of break through and to define and to set those boundaries so that, I mean, you have to have it clear with yourself before you can be clear with anybody else. And you need to understand why they're important to you.
It's not always necessary to have to explain yourself, in too much detail, but people might want to know why. That's for sure.
The
But
other,
that right there might be a boundary in itself. Hey, I don't feel like I need to explain myself.
yeah, yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. So another thing too is especially being coming from the environment that we did, when you set boundaries, it's really natural for us to face waves of defensiveness. And so be ready for that, expect it. And there are some people that may get defensive, and that absolutely is human nature, even in or out of the background that we came from. But it, like I said, it's human nature. And especially if they have been used to you saying yes, uh, we need to remember though that their discomfort doesn't mean that you are wrong. And a huge key is to stay anchored. And we're not going to let ourselves drift just because the water gets a little choppy.
So clarity is steady light. Okay. Not confrontation. You could think of it as like a lighthouse there in the illustration. A lighthouse doesn't argue with the storm. It just shines steady, giving direction, doesn't it? And their storm, their reaction, their discomfort, it's not your signal to abandon your own shore because your needs matter, don't they?
I love that analogy.
Mm, yeah, thank you.
So, one of the things I want to invite you to reflect on this: how could you stay calm if somebody reacts badly to your boundary? And what anchors you when those waves come? And in preparing this actually reminded me of the conversation, the initial conversation that I ended up having with a family member. And I because I was really clear about what I wanted to communicate and what the my boundary at that, the boundary that I had at that was, we are no longer going back. We're not going to go back to the congregation. And so that was the boundary that I had. And because I was really, really clear with it, it made it easier to not be triggered by some of the challenges. And so the other thing too that it helped me with was not get pulled into the emotion. And so having that clarity was key for that conversation. And it felt, I've earlier in the conversation tonight, we talked about, there are times when we come away from those kind of interactions where we feel bad or we feel down or something like that. But when I came away from that conversation, I felt empowered, not because I had proved anything right or anything like that, but because I was clear and because I was standing in my authenticity. And so was it was just, it ended up being a really amazing experience, actually.
Absolutely. When you're able to step into your authentic self, it is transformative, isn't it? Is it
Yeah.
not? You know, and having your why in place, solid,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to express that goes right along with all this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here we can see boundaries aren't just a one-time thing, right, or a declaration. They're practices, right? They don't just become strong just because you said them once. Like any muscle, they strengthen through repetition
Yeah.
over time. Yeah.
And John and I, over the weeks, we have talked about that word integration and how powerful that can be. And so with boundaries, it can help when we discuss our boundaries with other people. It can be friends. In sharing those types of things, we can practice saying what our boundary is out loud. And if we don't have other people around, we can always use the mirror, or if we've got trusted people. I had one even this week. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I was kind of practicing a little bit of the conversation that I wanted to have. And she challenged me. She was like, this is the way that this came across to me. And so being able to have that practice can really, really help. The other thing too is that it can make it to where it's less intimidating when that real conversation and that real moment comes to life. And one of the tools, I think I've shared this before, but one of the tools that I used when I first started doing this was I actually used ChatGPT to practice. It knows a lot of the background, and so I was able to have that conversation, and when the conversation would trigger me, that emotion would go up. And so it was a safe place to be practicing those boundaries in that conversation, and that helped immensely.
So another practice is journaling, right? Each week we could take a few minutes to notice, our boundary wins. Okay. The times you held steady, and also your boundary leaks, the times that your line slipped. They can both give you valuable insight, right, on where you're at with this. And don't forget refinement, because boundaries are lived, not just declared. If that makes sense. You'll adjust and refine them as your needs shift.
Mhm.
And they will, because boundaries aren't static. They evolve with you, and that doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you're growing or becoming.
Yeah. This kind of, it makes me think of yoga. And with yoga, when you're first starting, it can be really, really uncomfortable. And so the more that you practice, the more natural it actually feels. And so just like that, boundaries can start becoming more second nature when they're practiced on a regular basis. And it actually, the other thought that came to mind was if we're on an eating plan, for example, and we're just eating carrots or fresh fruits and vegetables. And so when we were talking about how it adjusts and stuff, we might be eating a certain way for a certain amount of time, 8 weeks or something like that. And so that's a boundary where we don't eat sugar, we don't eat certain high fat foods or something like that. But then after that time period, we might make some adjustments to the way that we're eating. So that's an example too of how some of it can adjust as depending on what our needs are.
That's a good analogy. I like that. I've done that myself. Go on
Yeah.
a 2 week or even a 3 week juice fast, and
Yeah.
then when you come off it, you're not going to just start eating steak and potatoes right away. You're going to eat light,
Yeah,
some
that would be
fruits.
that could
Yeah,
be painful.
yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as we close out the discussion for this week, we wanted to share a few resources and tools. These books are practical companions for the boundary journey, and they can give you language, additional strategies, as well as examples to help you strengthen your voice.
We especially recommend these four books here that you see: Set Boundaries, Find Peace, Boundary Boss, The Book of Boundaries, and The High Five Habit by Mel Robbins. She's one of my favorites. We listen to her all the time on Growth Day,
Yeah.
and yeah, these are great for building internal boundaries as well as self trust.
Yep,
Yeah,
definitely. So let us know if you guys check out any of these books and if they were beneficial to you. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your feedback on them. So next week on Deservingly You, we're going to do something a little bit different. It's not going to be live again, but we're going to bring you with us on the road as we move from North Carolina to Arizona.
and this trip isn't just about packing and moving boxes or driving miles, thousands of miles. It's a metaphor for leaving behind the familiar and opening ourselves up to what's next,
Yeah.
new and exciting adventure.
When we began all of this, when we and thought about moving, it was with a heartfelt petition, and we were asking for a new chapter and trusting that it was going to unfold in the right timing, and it actually has been doing that. And just like any road, answers don't come all at once, and they can be revealed mile by mile. And it might be in those quiet stretches or those unexpected moments.
Mm, absolutely. So, in movement itself, it creates energy. And as we travel through parts of the country that we've never seen before, we'll be reminded of how alive it feels to step into the unknown, to let go of what has blocked us and to allow freedom to start flowing again.
Through all of this, we truly feel that we're following our true north, that inner compass that is guiding us forward, even when we might not have the whole entire route mapped out, but we're following that guide, that inner compass.
Yeah. So if you've ever wondered what it feels like to leave the old roads of high control uh, behind you and step into a wide open possibility, we hope you'll join us, because this journey is for you.
Yep.
So let's close with this. A a quote from Prentice Hemphill. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. I like that.
Yeah. That I have an invitation for you too. I want you to journal on this question. One boundary I'm ready. Let me try that again. One boundary I'm ready to practice claiming is, and fill in the blank. So thanks for joining us tonight.
You are worthy of boundaries that honor who you are and how you want to live. Appreciate you for being here. And we look forward to being back live again in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Showing that each and every one of you add value. Remember that this is a community of learning. And if you know, please, if you have any questions, throw them out there because we'll be in the chat.
Yep.
Appreciate you.
All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye bye.